Mercy is a sci-fi thriller where an AI judge gives those accused of violent crimes 90 minutes to prove their innocence before they're executed. But when one of the biggest names behind the system is arrested for murder, it puts the system to its biggest test yet. Let's dive in.
So the basic premise of this entire movie is Chris Pratt plays a character named Detective Chris Raven. It's kind of a stretch with him playing a Chris, I guess, but he is accused of the murder of his wife. So this entire movie basically takes place with Chris strapped to a chair and having to interact with what is basically an AI judge, played by Rebecca Ferguson in this case. And he's got 90 minutes to prove that he didn't commit this crime. So you basically have a threshold of, I believe it was 95% guilt or 95% probability or 90%.
I think he had to drop it like 6 or 7% to not be like executed immediately,
right
at the 90-minute mark.
Right, and this whole movie is based on the premise of AI having access to all of our information and him being able to basically scour every video camera, whatever tool he has at his disposal that is available to him via the cloud and all these things that, this artificial intelligence has access to kind of prove his innocence. And, through, storytelling means here, they more or less stack the deck against him at every twist and turn to try to, build tension throughout the story to make you believe that he was actually going to, either prove his innocence or not, and wind up being executed by the end. So they try to fill that tension in by very clearly telling you how long this movie's going to be, basically. Like, it was almost like a legitimate 90-minute clock, because the movie's just a little over 90 minutes long anyway. So it was just kind of like, okay, we're jumping right into this, and that's the entire premise of the film, is him waking up in this and then just going through the whole task of, trying to prove his innocence here. So it's kind of the basis of the story and where we kick off from.
Yeah, because the premise is about 2 years ago in this world, they started the Mercy Court. AI has complete and utter judgment. It's judge, jury, and executioner. If you don't prove to the AI that you're innocent, and this is only for violent criminals, so Chris's case is actually, I believe, number 19.
Yes.
So they've only had 18 other cases in 2 years for this, but you have no lawyer, you have no representation, you have no anything but you and the AI. Now you can ask the AI to make phone calls and to contact different people or pull up records and security, like you said, but you're pretty much on your own on it. And it was one I didn't have a whole lot of hopes for when I went into, and I left it kind of mixed. Like it had the bones that it could be something fun, and because it reminded me a lot of a light version of Minority Report mixed with Speed a little bit, especially one sequence where in a garage is very obvious a Speed reference in there and stuff. Also a little bit of Cops is like the, footage that they're showing. And that was one of the problems I had, like all the footage that they're showing, especially of like his arrest and other things. It felt so over the top campy with all that stuff. And you had a weird mix because it's supposed to be sci-fi, but the only thing you really have sci-fi in it is the AI, who's clearly using Apple. Everything, all the UI is Apple with that, which being a UI designer, I've kind of looked up like it's, okay, they're basically, the AI is Siri and trying to kill you, basically, but it's not. But yeah, it was one that I kind of just sat through and like, it's okay. It's right on the cusp of where it could have been something much better. But it left me almost really not caring exactly what's going on because, as you said, we jump right into it. Chris is strapped into that chair and he's waking up and he spends like the first 15 minutes blinking and trying to get his vision clear, which was that really started the movie off in a way like, all right, this is not going to be something that I'm going to really enjoy because it went on for way too long. Yeah. But, it jumps you in right there immediately. So you didn't really get a whole lot of build-up. Like, you get to learn that, he's been on the force for a while now. He lost his partner, that, he was one of the guys at the forefront of getting Mercy going and putting guys away. And it was, like one of his arrests. That was the very first ones that kind of kicked Mercy off and that everyone's going to. But it was just, I don't know, the best thing I can say about it was okay, but it was nothing like too special.
Sure, and they kind of play with it as like a whodunit, like if he didn't do it, who actually did? And they try to go about in what they try to do cleverly is try to subvert expectations where you obviously think it's going to be this person and then winds up very much not being that person. And it was very, in my opinion, very predictable on who was going to be responsible for it. And, you know, we won't spoil that part of it for you if you just want to go into it, but you don't need to think too hard when you go into like the characters involved and who is actually responsible for the double cross and the death of the wife. But I mean, it has its fun moments where it tries to be a little suspenseful. And like I said, like I think you hit the nail on the head. There's bones to do something really fun here. I just think they missed the mark on it because I think they were trying a little too hard, and then, you know, just kind of skip around a little bit, beating you over the head at the end where you're like, oh, we have to question. Like they try to leave a message of like, oh, we're questioning if AI is something we need to be doing for this. It's very overly hitting you over the head about the dangers of using AI for some of these things. Like there's some very obvious messaging in it that I think is a little heavy-handed as well. Like they try to play with throughout this whole thing, where half of the movie I feel like is Chris Pratt arguing with Rebecca Ferguson's AI character. Like, you don't understand. The human perception is much better than artificial intelligence perception of things, and you can look for nuance where, you know, AI is just black and white. And it was like, all right, we get it. Like you don't have to lean into that dichotomy that heavy throughout the film. And that part of it really kind of got under my skin a little bit as we were watching it. It's just like, okay, we get it. Like AI is very black and white. Like it only knows, you know, what you input into it, basically. Like it only knows that, and it can't make judgment calls and everything. But it's a judge, right? But it's a judgment. I know it's just silly, but it felt like it beat us over the head a little bit too much with that. As far as like trying to get us through the story, like I said, it had moments where it was fun. Like I wouldn't say like I hated the film by any means, and there were parts of it that were very enjoyable to watch. There was just so many things that I was just shaking my head at as far as that goes, and that kind of took me out of it a little bit. But I think it was all right. Like I just think they did a fine job. It's nothing like earth shattering or earth breaking. Like it's an all right story, but I just have like the things that I have issues with. I have kind of bigger issues than I would normally have with it. Like I said, they're just beating you over the head with AI is bad, human is good kind of thing. Like we get it. We're not the biggest fans of. We've talked about it on this podcast umpteen times now about what our opinions on the use of artificial intelligence to replace humans for certain things. But even I in this movie was just like, okay, we get it. AI bad, we get it. Like, I don't know. I just feel like they leaned way too much into that in this movie, and in trying to build tension that I think was just so unnecessary.
Yeah, that's what it just felt odd. Like as I said, you jump right into it with him in the chair, but you're learning that he's an alcoholic and he's gone through this. Yeah. They make him very unlikable right from the get-go. Yeah. And it's not until very close to the end that you start feeling any different to him. So it's kind of hard to really be like cheering for him to solve the case. I'm like, well, yeah, everything still points to you. And as you said, it's extremely predictable on what's going to happen in the twist. It really did fall apart in the end. Like the action sequence to try to put in, there's some bad CGI with the vehicle chase scenes and stuff. There's some decisions at the end that didn't really make sense, that someone in the position who's trying to do what they're trying to do wouldn't be doing, or turning away, or just, there's a lot of questionable stuff at the end. Like I said, it was so close to being something that could be really enjoyable. I compared it to Minority Report and Speed. It doesn't have the depth or the intrigue or the mystery that Minority Report does. It's clearly trying to channel a little bit, and it doesn't have the fun of Speed and everything and that. And it tries to pull from so many different things, because it was really weird. I started talking about it like, it's supposed to be sci-fi. Most of it you're talking about with AI, but you got the Apple interface, so it doesn't feel that too futuristic. And the only other futuristic thing you really have is this drone motorcycle thing that everything else looks plain and normal and regular, and then you're going into this, it just felt out of place. So when they have that, like, well, you only have 90 minutes, how do we do all these different investigations all around the big city? Oh, let's just give a drone, motorcycle that can get anywhere in like 4 minutes. Like, but every time we see it, it is looking like a really slow go-kart that's just like, all right, we're here. All right, let's park and let's go. Like, it just lost me in so much of the stuff. Like, it could have been a really fun murder mystery of doing this way, but you didn't feel sympathy for Chris throughout of it, and you're not really supposed to for the most part, but there's just not that many likable characters in here. Even, the daughter of his has a lot of problems and issues being a typical teenager, but you get some odd sequences in that. And Rebecca Ferguson is great in just about everything. She's okay in here because she's supposed to be playing pretty flat. Like, an AI is not really supposed to be showing emotion or doing much more, and they've upped the sound effects to make her voice sound a little more robotic. She's fine. I think Chris Pratt was okay in it. It never really made me care about what was going on the screen.
Yeah, there was no really redemptive qualities for your main protagonist in this film, who's fighting like crazy to lose his innocence, to lose his guiltiness in this case. But it's not a whole lot to root for when you start dealing with all the problems that he has and his inability to stay straight and his inability to deal with the trauma that he experienced and how he took it out on his family. And he just had a whole lot of issues that he just refused to deal with. And even like in the beginning when he was just like trying to flat out lie, you're just like, you know what, just find him guilty and execute him and let's get this movie over with.
It was over within 90 seconds.
Right. Like, it's just like, you're just a jerk. Now all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, okay. It's almost like the AI was even goading him into like, no, keep going. Like, I see.
It was weird. The AI was like, no, you're probably innocent. Why don't you try?
Right. And I'm just like, what are we doing here? It's kind of insulting to your intelligence a little bit, where it's just like, okay, like at some point you're just like, I kind of wanted there to be like almost no twist, where it was like, no, he really did it. Other people may have tried to, but he was the one that actually did it. You know what I mean? Or something. I was just like, I almost wanted him to be guilty throughout quite a bit of it. It was just like, I know he's going to be fine and he's going to be okay, but like, let's make him guilty. Let's just make him try to beat AI into thinking that it was legitimately someone else.
That would have been a more fun twist than what they actually
the actual
gave.
twist would have been like, no, he legitimately did it, but he fooled AI. That would have been fun. I'd have been like, I'd have had some fun with that, but it was just like, it was so predictable. And it was just, I don't know, man. Like I said, the through lines of the story were okay. Like the use of AI to hack, to look into everything. Like, I get that if you have access to those things, and it just goes to show that you can, as long as stuff's uploaded to the cloud, you can find and see literally everything. And that's, just the world of technology that we live in now, where if you really have access to all of those things, like you can't really hide much anymore. You know what I mean? Like it does a fine job of using AI in that way, of like just access to literally everything and surveillance and stuff. And I guess it really helps conveniently that the person being on trial here was an actual detective, because it kind of makes you wonder for those other people, were those people given adequate chances to defend themselves? Because you very clearly see by the end of the film that wasn't the case for one of these cases. And it was just like, all right, well, now you question the whole thing, and was it good? And that's, I guess, kind of the point, because like, was it fallible? Like, were all of those executions necessary? Because a little light spoiler, all 18 cases were successfully ending in executions, like before this one. And you deal around the morality of all of that, but it just, I don't know, man. It just, there were pieces of it there that could have really worked, but it just felt so incomplete as far as like just making any kind of logical story sense make sense, and it just be that much more enjoyable. And it's hard to find a whole lot of redeemable qualities in this film. Like, it's okay. Like, I think it's worth a watch, but like it's one of those that, like, I don't know. I just, the easiest way I could describe it is just meh. It's just meh.
It could have been much better. Yeah. It was just very it's okay. Like, it's not a terrible film. It just didn't capitalize on its premise. It didn't capitalize on the actors and everything it had there. And like I said, the ending, when our first twist to finding out more information, just made no sense. Like, the logicalness of it, and I don't want to spoil it, but just the way they explained of how it all happens, like, no, this just would not happen. And it's also, you're having to throw out any knowledge of the rule of law that you have. There's like, they're getting no representation. Like, it's literally, the next day or the same day that he is gone in front of, I think it's the same, or next morning, that he's put in front of the judge, no lawyer, no anything, immediately put in there, and you have 90 minutes. Like, majority of the people you're going to be putting up, violent criminals or something, they're not going to know how to defend themselves or look for evidence or how to do it. So you have no help. Like, it's maybe that's part of the point, is that they wanted this to be just ironclad, that we're just going to find everybody guilty and stuff. But it's a flaw in the movie that you just have to think, well, they were a violent criminal, they don't deserve representation. But like I said, most of the movie is kind of feeling modern day, other than the AI and the flying motorcycle.
Right.
So it just felt weird that there was zero representation. He didn't even, he got arrested. He was blackout drunk. He woke up and he's in court. Like, that doesn't just sit right with me, that it would start off that way, because, they do a test to see if he's sober enough to stand trial, but there's no talking to anybody. There's no other evidence. They just feel like this mercy program is, well, she knows everything already, so why do we need to waste any time? We just throw him in there. And that's, I guess, a flaw you're supposed to see in the system and everything else, but it was a flaw in the movie.
Yeah, for
that
sure.
It just didn't make a whole lot of sense, that it would go straight to that, and you had nothing and no one saying, well, why didn't they have a lawyer? Why didn't they have this? It's been going on for 2 years, and no one has complained about no representation or anything else, just because a violent criminal's off the streets. Maybe it's supposed to do that, but for me, it just didn't fit right in the movie.
Yeah, it's not all practical, and it's not, all believable. And I think that's part of the issue that I have with it. It just doesn't even seem like it's a feasible thing. I would be remiss if I didn't poke a little fun at the fact that, did you see the promotional poster for the movie for this?
Yeah.
When you've seen it, in the promotional poster, it shows Chris Pratt with a lighter color shirt on, with a bulletproof vest and a gun. Can you name the time in the movie you saw him wielding all of three of those things at the same time?
Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, I think, was the
Maybe
last time.
that might have been the last time, but it definitely wasn't involved in this film.
This one.
And that's part of the fun that I've seen people.
It also has a giant explosion in the background. There really isn't that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. It's really odd, because the poster also gave you vibes of Minority Report's poster and stuff too, but it is 1%. I know Minority Report was mixed along a lot of people, but I really loved that film, and I really enjoyed what they did with it, and the mystery and the intrigue and everything. And this was just a really failed copy of trying to do that. And even the poster tried to do that. It was just weird overall. It did not fit the trailers. It did not fit a lot of stuff that it tried to do with the marketing. Yeah,
it is just a failed effort all around, unfortunately. But we do get some fun. We wanted to talk about some of the fun actor reunions that we kind of see in this. I
almost audibly laughed in the theater during what is a serious moment when he popped up.
Yes, you've got obviously Chris Pratt, who was in, Parks and Rec, and just an iconic show. You have Jay Jackson showing up in the film as a news reporter here. So we got Pert Hapley in the.
He still sounds, looks, everything. I just in my head, I'm Pert Hapley.
So funny. You get that fun reunion, but you also get a Guardians of the Galaxy reunion too, because Chris Sullivan plays Rob, who's Chris's AA sponsor, and that is the actor who played. What was his name in
Taserface?
Taserface. That's right. He played Taserface in
just rolls right
Guardians
off the
of the Galaxy. You can clearly tell it's him. I chuckled when I saw that too. I'm just like, oh, we're getting all the gang from all of his other works back together in a film here. But yeah, there's some fun little things in that, but it tried to be clever. In some ways, it was fun. It was fun. Some of the chase stuff and trying to get some of the evidence was fun. I do kind of like how they could take the scene and recreate it, and how they tried to show that stuff, give you because he's in this very clearly technological sound area, where you can just kind of holographically put up stuff all around him. You can kind of feel like you're immersed in it, which was kind of fun. I kind of enjoyed some of those aspects of it, where you can kind of walk through the crime scene and kind of see it recreated through the use of AI and all that stuff. That was neat. I did like some of that, but just so much more of this just very clearly missed the mark for me.
Yeah, it like I said, it was on the cusp of being something that could be really fun, but it just failed most of its attempts. That stuff was neat. It was interesting to look at, going through the crime scenes, picking stuff up between, VR glasses and everything else of how you can dissect a scene and everything else. But it was just, yeah, it just didn't capitalize on it. The biggest problem is that you just didn't feel any sympathy for Chris Pratt's character throughout the film, because part of the movie you're not supposed to, because you're supposed to be seeing that he went through a trauma, but he was a jerk and a bad guy out of it. But when you spend, 80 minutes of a 90-minute film of him being a complete and absolute jerk and a bad guy, like, you just don't feel any sympathy for it. So you're just like, all right, let's just go ahead and get it over with and be done with it. And you learn some things about the wife, which also, well, I don't really care about the wife now either, and the daughter and the in-laws, and you can get what some of them are acting, but you just didn't really care about anybody in this film. I mean, the main one you could care about is the AI, and she's very just stern and, straightforward with it all. And even when they did the twist, like it was so predictable, you really didn't care by the end, and especially because of the issues with how they did the reveal of how everything went down and happened. It's like, this just really isn't a plausible explanation of something that would happen in a detective's house. That would not happen.
Well, it's like you have the twist, and then you have like the little mini second twist, like
Which
behind
I
it
hated,
afterwards,
that
which was
second
just
twist.
dumb. I'm sorry, it was dumb, and it was like, oh, you got to be kidding me! You're telling me a detective didn't look into somebody that came into their life? Like, come on now! Like, you wouldn't have known that they were this or whatever. Like, I don't know. Like, it felt very sus to me, and I was just like, you know what? Sure, why not? Why not throw a third twist in there just to kind of mess with us?
It was
again?
crazy when Spider-Man showed up.
Tom Holland was just whipping all around, like it was wild. The crowd went crazy, but no, it was just flat, man. Just fell flat. But I agree with you, man. By the time they got to that, I was just like, I don't care. Like, let's go on, save the day, catch the bad guy, and great, all's right and well, and we're gonna move forward and hopefully never come back to this series again, because it definitely was a one-off that needs to stay a one-off, and I don't anticipate it's going to do that well at the box office. Our screening wasn't particularly well attended either, but I don't know, man. There was a lot of what could have been, and it just really missed the mark so many times in that not a ton of redemptive qualities in this movie, unfortunately.
I think that's the biggest disappointment, is that we said it has the bones that it could have done something really interesting if they went with a better twist, like you threw out there with it and everything, and if they would have really made you care about Chris's character more and about the wife a little bit more. But just everything in Unveil just showed everybody around was a terrible person, basically. Yeah. So you didn't really have anybody cheer for him when you go outside of, all right, don't really have any redeemable characters. The story is okay. There's nothing that's really blowing you away. The twist is predictable. Then you got to go look at action. All right, at least maybe I can get some decent action. But most of the action takes place through like body cams and drone cams and everything else. And as I mentioned, it felt like a bad episode of Cops. It almost felt like, Futurama made fun of cops in its series, and it would have these different, that's kind of what it almost felt like. He was really over the top for most of it. Like, Chris is throwing chairs at him, and he's really drunk, and he's like, oh, okay. And then it just felt like really over the top. There really wasn't even solid action. But then you went the other side when you got the story about his partner, what happened to him, and that was dark and dramatic, and you had cars flipping, and like, so many sequences felt like they weren't really part of the same movie because they were done in so many different ways, like slapstick almost in some parts and really dark and serious in others.
You know what this, as we're talking about this, a light bulb just literally went off in my head. You know what this would probably have worked better as? As one episode in a series. Like a TV
kind of like
show.
A Black Mirror type
kind of like
episode.
A TV show. Yeah. Like kind of like that, where you're like, the whole premise is around this AI. It's almost like a season finale episode of like a Netflix season, right? So it was just kind of like, okay, you have like 6 or 7 episodes. Every episode is about this AI court and somebody trying to prove their innocence. And you get, a person you may try to root for, but they actually did it. They were actually guilty. And then you finally get to the episode where you may have an episode where a guy wasn't guilty, but he still fails to, get the gut punch of failing to defend themselves. But in the season finale, you get the cop who was wrongly accused but successfully does it, and kind of gets them to kind of change how they think about doing the AI program. It felt like it could have been almost an acceptable season finale of a TV show rather than an actual full-length feature film. And I think it might have, had it been compacted a little more, might have worked a little bit better, but it just doesn't feel like it worked in the avenue that we got, unfortunately.
Yeah. Like I say, it had some good ideas. It just didn't execute any of them well. Yeah. The twist was bad. It really fell apart in the end. You didn't really care about the characters. The action scenes just weren't that good. It had a weird sci-fi flying motorbike, and then you get in other stuff with black market phones and the drug epidemic and all the other stuff. It's like, it kind of does feel like, wait, where's the rest of this story? Because it didn't really set you up. It like gave you a few newsreels and gave you a few little bit of information on him and his life and what's going on in the world in like 2 minutes, and then it just threw you in there. It didn't really do that world building that a good sci-fi murder mystery really needs, because you're finding out so much. So like, I don't think the investigation was all that terrible that they were doing. You just didn't care, or at least I didn't care throughout it. That I'm like, well, everything still points to you, and there's even some comedic moments of like, I just proved something, and he looks at his rating, and it's still like 98%. And like, why didn't it fall? Well, it didn't change.
You have a lot
anything.
of good theories, but you're not backing it up with facts yet.
And then it's also pretty improbable to go above 98%. Oh, thank you. And like, the humor worked in a few beats, but other beats just felt really awkward. Now, I mean, there was some stuff that you giggled at because he makes a phone call to a guy a couple times and he says some offbeat stuff to it, and you can get, and that's funny. But it's also like, hey, you've got pretty much 30 minutes left on basically your life, and you're going to use it to make some digs and jabs and jokes and everything else. It just,
come on now.
It was so close that it could have been something really fun. It just did not execute how it needed to be.
Yeah, no urgency at all for a guy who has 90 minutes to live in some cases, and you're just like you almost want to put yourself in their shoes. Like if this was me and I was sitting like, yeah, I'd be frantically searching for everything I can find. And just, you never felt that way for a character who just had very little redeeming qualities, but he's the protagonist, so he has to make it out at the end. And it just fell so short on the predictableness. And unfortunately it's just one that, we went and saw it, but it's kind of done, and now we got to talk about it and rate it. You know what I mean? And it's unfortunate because like we've hammered home this entire time, the pieces were there. It's almost like it's like, if I could equate it in a sports reference, is you get the ball and you're driving down the field and you get stuck on the 30-yard line. And you're like, I would accept if you just kicked a field goal and took the points, but they just still try to go for it and they turn the ball over.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's kind of what I feel about this in sports terms of how we got this movie and how they executed it. It's just like, you almost had me. You almost had something where that it's just these other things fell apart and just kind of kicked it down several notches for me, unfortunately.
Yeah, so Mercy in the end, it tried to do something fun and interesting. It tried to give you a sci-fi murder mystery, but it was very light on the sci-fi. There's some odd inclusions in that. It didn't have really any memorable or good action sequences in it as well, and it didn't make you care about any of the characters. So, in the end, I'm giving this probably like a 5 to 5.5. I might give it a 5.5 just because I feel like it could have been something much better than it was. It just did not execute anything well at all in this. You don't care about what's going on. No one in this movie really has redeemable qualities to it. And the ending was a rushed kind of mess that just did not make sense. And yeah, it was a disappointment overall.
Yeah, I've been up and down in my comments about this film too. Like you said, the pieces were there. I feel like personally it would have fit better as like the final episode in a season of a TV series than an actual film. Like I think you could have condensed it down a little bit more and kind of tightened things up a little bit, and it would have worked in that avenue. But unfortunately it is in a film version. I'm going to give it a 5 just because it's so up and down for me. It's not a terrible movie, but it's not a really good movie either. Like it's just kind of one of those like, okay, we saw it, like it's done, we'll talk about it and we'll move on. It's one that I don't anticipate myself going back and revisiting again now that I've seen it. It's just like, okay, it happened, I watched it, it was all right. And that's just kind of the feeling I've had ever since I walked out of it. It was just all right. Like it didn't blow me away. It didn't like, it didn't I didn't feel disappointed when I walked out of it, because it did kind of set the bar low for this film too. Like going into it, I was like, I don't have a lot of high expectations for it. Could it be fun? I always try to go into these hoping to be pleasantly surprised. Really, obviously, there's some films that I'm significantly more hyped to see than others, but this one was just kind of like, okay, if we get a good movie, cool. If we don't, it's fine. We'll talk about it. And it just wound up being fine for me. So I think 5 is fair for it.
Yeah, because you go into different films in different ways. Like, as bring on Minority Report, it's giving you mystery and intrigue and sci-fi and action, and it's got twist and everything else. And this one, like, it wrote chapter 1 and then it skipped to chapter 10. Like, it didn't do any of the middle good parts. It just did the beginning and it did the end, and that was basically it. And because you go in, well, okay, if the story wasn't as good, maybe there's some humor, 2 or 3 bits in here. Okay, well, what about action? 1, 2 maybe things. That's not just shaky body cam footage or something else. It was just poor execution in the end. Like it had an interesting story it could have told. And it could have had a much better twist and much better everything if it just executed. Sure,
and that's the problem. Like if it's lacking in other areas, you really want something else about the film to really stand out and kind of make you go, "Oh wow, that was awesome!" And outside of, like I said, the AI regenerating the crime scenes and how they try to incorporate that into like the room that he was in, like that was fine. Mm-hmm. Like the CGI wasn't perfect by any means, but I was like, that was fine. But that's not enough to lift up the rest of the movie, in my opinion. And I was just like, okay, it's fine. It's just okay. And I think it's okay to have movies like that. It's okay to have movies that are just okay. Like, it's not the worst thing I've ever seen. It's not going to make my list for favorite movies at the end of the year either. It's just kind of one of those ones like, hey, we saw it. It was all right. Now it's kind of on to the next one for us, you know? And I think that's perfectly fine. I'm not going to sit here and like completely bash the film saying it's the worst thing I've ever seen. 'Cause one, we're not normally that harsh when it comes to talking about movies, but there's several films that we've reviewed on here that I feel were much worse than this one. So I mean, you know, it's fair. Please go see the movie and give it, you know, your own thoughts. Come to us, talk to us about it. Let us know what you think. If you think we're missing the mark on here and you loved it, that's great too. Like, hopefully it had something for you that you found intriguing and that you loved. You know, a lot of you love coming and telling us how you think we're wrong anyway. So, like, if you love it, come tell us. Come let us know. We welcome the conversation.
Yeah, conversation, not trolls and everything else. But yeah, it's kind of bad that I've left this movie and everything because we saw it last night and recording the next day on it. The main thing I've taken away from this movie was laughing about seeing basically Perd Hapley back again. Yeah. Like, he wasn't playing Perd, but that was Perd Hapley. Pretty like much, you didn't call him by name, but you know he had the same mannerisms, he had the same look, he had the same everything. He's playing a generic news reporter, but that's a bad thing when a character that has about 15 seconds of screen time for the entire movie is what I'm thinking about the most after watching this movie.
That's also just how your silly brain works sometimes.
I love Parks and Recreation, so when I saw Perd Hapley, I'm just like, oh, it's Perd.
And then you got distracted. So
I got this shiny thing jumped in front of my face, and that's what I stuck with.
But I love that, though, just a little takeaway from that. But yeah, like you said, that's not the best sign walking out of a movie. You're just like, oh, hey, this little cameo is the only thing I'm thinking about coming out of this movie. And that's the sign of a just okay movie. Mm-hmm. You're not walking out thinking how bad it is. You're not walking out going, man, that was awesome. I can't wait to talk about it. We always love coming in and talking about how we feel about these things, but it was just like, it wasn't one of those that were like, oh my God, I got to tell you how great this movie is and how, you know, life-changing it was and how amazing it was and all of that. But it was just fun. And I think that's a good way to sum it up, is like, it was just fun.
Yeah, so thank you so much for tuning in. If you feel so inclined, do all the things that help the show out, from follows, shares, likes, and comments on social media to subscribing on YouTube and your favorite audio platforms. All of it helps us out so much, and we can't thank you enough for your support.
You can now also subscribe to us on Patreon, which gives you early access to all of our episodes, exclusive merch items. You can also get your name read out at the end of every episode. Come join us at patreon.com/we'llbringthepopcorn. We'd love for you to join us over there.
But that's going to do it for this episode. We'll see you on the next one.